I live in a small 4-story apartment complex. I used to have a roommate, but they moved out a few months ago. I decided to stay in the apartment instead of finding a new place. Most of the other residents were older couples, but I'd never really interacted with them. We all kept to ourselves, which suited me fine. One night, I got home late, around 11 p.m. As I walked up the stairs to my room, it was quiet. But when I turned the corner into the hallway, a man was standing at my door. He noticed me immediately. Before I could react, he started apologizing and saying he'd mixed up the doors. He turned around and went into the apartment across from mine. I'd never seen him before. But since he lived across from me, I figured he might have accidentally gotten the doors confused, especially if he had just moved in. It was still weird, though. I didn't know why he would be standing outside someone's door if he thought it was his. And why, when he saw me, did he suddenly realize he was at the wrong door? Whatever the case, I went inside, locked the door, and tried to figure out what had just happened. As I sat on my couch, trying to process the encounter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The man's behavior was strange, and it was difficult to understand his intentions. Was he simply lost or confused? Was he trying to break into my apartment? Or was he just a harmless stranger who had made a mistake? I tried to rationalize the situation, to convince myself that there was nothing to worry about. But the more I thought about it, the more questions arose. Why had he chosen to stand outside my door, rather than knocking on it? Why had he apologized so quickly, as if he knew he had done something wrong? And why had he seemed so relieved when he realized he was at the wrong door? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was as if he had been watching me, waiting for an opportunity to enter my apartment. The thought was terrifying, and it sent a chill down my spine. I tried to dismiss it as a product of my overactive imagination, but the fear was real. As I lay in bed that night, trying to sleep, I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my mind. The man's presence, his sudden appearance, his strange behavior, it all seemed so deliberate, so calculated. I was terrified of the thought that he might return, that he might try to break into my apartment again. I knew I was being irrational, but I couldn't help it. My mind was racing with all sorts of possibilities, all of them terrifying. I tried to calm myself down, to focus on something else, but it was no use. The fear was too strong. It was late, and I was tired, so maybe I should have been more worried. But I just didn't have the energy to think about it. I made a quick meal, sat on the couch, and watched some TV. About 30 minutes later, I heard something outside my door. It was a quiet shuffling sound, like someone was up against the door. I got up, listened, and then opened it. Nobody was there. I stepped into the hallway and looked down, but didn't see anyone. I heard footsteps going down the stairs. I went back in and closed the door. Maybe I was overthinking it, but I started wondering if the man had leaned against my door to listen to what was going on inside my apartment. That would explain the shuffling sound and why he left as soon as I started walking up again. I could have been imagining the worst-case scenario, but I was definitely more shaken for the rest of the night. I didn't get into bed until 1 a.m., but I fell asleep soon after. Nothing else happened that night or the next morning. I went to work and got back to the apartment around 11 p.m. I was a bit more cautious this time. I walked up the stairs and looked down the hallway, but nobody was at the door. For some reason, I got a strange feeling seeing the hallway empty. I didn't know why. I quickly went inside and locked the door behind me. But when I turned around, I was face to face with the man from the night before. He was standing in the doorway to my bedroom, telling me to be quiet and do as he says. He tried to direct me into the living room. I turned around, tried to open the door, but the man grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Just as I got the door open, I yelled as loud as I could. He tried to cover my mouth, but he was unsuccessful. He let go, and I ran down the stairs. I heard him leaving as well. I went straight to my car, drove away, and called the police. When they got there, the man was gone, of course. I told them he lived in a room across from mine, but it turned out to be a vacant unit. The man, whoever he was, didn't even live in the building. I don't know how he got into the building or into both mine and the vacant room, but clearly, he had access he shouldn't have. What he wanted to do by breaking into my apartment and waiting for me is something I hope to never find out firsthand. With him still out there, though, all I can do is pray he wasn't targeting me in particular. This happened a few months ago. I'm 32, living alone in a small house. It was my day off, so I was home relaxing and cooking dinner. Around 4 p.m., someone knocked on the door. I went to the front, and there was a man standing on my porch. Behind him was a small gray van parked on the curb. I opened the door and asked if I could help him. The man hesitated for a moment before responding, his voice monotone and his expression blank. He said he was doing free home inspections in the neighborhood and wanted to offer me a free inspection for my house. However, something about his demeanor seemed off. His eyes were vacant, his movements were slow and deliberate, and he spoke as if he were reading from a script. He didn't make any eye contact, and he didn't smile or show any emotion. I was immediately put on edge by his behavior. It was as if he were a robot, programmed to deliver a specific message and then move on. I had never encountered anyone like him before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I declined his offer politely, but he persisted. He tried to convince me that it would be a great opportunity to get my house evaluated by a professional. He even offered to do the inspection right then and there. I told him I wasn't interested, but he continued to press me. Finally, I had to be more assertive. I told him that I was not interested in a free home inspection and that I wanted him to leave. He seemed surprised by my firmness, but he eventually turned around and walked away. As I watched him walk back to his van, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He had seemed so out of place, so unnatural. It was as if he were a ghost, a phantom that had appeared out of nowhere and then vanished just as quickly. I couldn't understand why he had chosen to target me, or what his intentions had been. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. I was still shaken by the encounter, and I couldn't stop thinking about the man and his strange behavior. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that there was nothing to worry about. But the more I thought about it, the more questions arose. They said an officer would arrive in a few minutes. I watched the man, and about a minute later, he walked off my porch and into his van. He drove away just before the officer arrived. It was unfortunate timing, but I was glad he was gone. I gave the officer a description and went back to enjoying my night. A couple of hours passed without incident. It was 8 o'clock or 9 p.m., and I was resting in my bed on my phone. Through the open window, I heard the rattling sound of an old vehicle pulling up and parking outside my house. I heard someone getting out, so I quickly went to the window. It was the same old van, but I didn't see the man. He must have rushed away as soon as he got out. I quickly got my phone and called 911. As I hung up, I heard a loud thump downstairs. I felt the walls shake, and I knew the man was trying to break in. I opened my bedroom door, went into the hallway, and listened. It was eerily quiet. I walked down a few steps and looked around. All the lights were off, but I saw the curtains by one of the windows swaying in the wind. The window had been forced open. My body tensed up as I tried to control myself. The man was likely somewhere in my house. I carefully and quietly went back upstairs and hid in the bedroom closet. I didn't hear anything until a few minutes later when 2 officers knocked on the front door. I ran downstairs and let them in. They didn't hear anyone trying to run away. It only took a few seconds for the officers to find the man hiding behind the kitchen counter. He gave up without a fight. Disturbingly, he was holding a large hammer, which he had used to force open the window. When they tested him at the station, he wasn't high or drunk, but he still had that eerily vacant personality. He never said his intentions, almost like he didn't even remember what had happened. It's hard for me not to think about the other ways this could have gone. If I had gone to sleep and not heard him get in, I might have come to a horrible fate in the morning or possibly not even been given the luxury of waking up.